Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Josh with another Google Ads video, and today we're going to be talking about a chicken. But not just any chicken. This chicken is very business and puts his business hat on and gets to work at trying to make as much money as possible. But with all jokes aside, this is a metaphor for business metrics. You have your blended numbers slash backend for the chicken itself. Then you have the in-app numbers, which could be Meta, Amazon, or Google Ads platform. What you see inside there, that's the in-app numbers here. And then you have the golden standard of revenue, that golden egg. I've never had a farmer say, hey, I got too many eggs, or I got too many large eggs. I've never heard a business say, I don't want any more money. So the higher this is, the bigger it is, the more money you're gonna get. So how do we get that or those eggs a lot bigger or more often? Well, we take a look at the chicken. And basically kind of how business start out is you start feeding the chicken new customers, goes into new orders, goes in new cost acquired new customer, goes into MER, AOV, total orders. Then you start getting into kind of repeat customer rates, open email rate, customer lists, and LTV. So these are all interconnected to each other. They all kind of share the same blood of all the stuff that's digested kind of spreads across the chicken. And if you take one of these away, let's say open email rate, you don't know what's going on there. Maybe it's really poor, and you could be missing out on making this egg slightly bigger than it could have been. And same goes with MER or NCAC. If we take away NCAC, then how much are you spending on a new client to come in or a new customer to come in, which could affect overall numbers as well. It starts to dwindle down into all these other areas because it could be the heart line or the heart of the chicken. And if it's not pumping out, enough blood to all these other sources, well, I could start taking a dive. But yeah, that's how the revenue or the golden standard works, is the health of the chicken. So let's take these in-app numbers, and I consider these like the droppings of numbers. Like you have CPA, clicks, CPC, ROAS, conversion rate. So it's not saying that these numbers are bad. You could definitely use these numbers for trends and saying, okay, like our ROAS dropped by a lot. What happened there? Did we make any changes? But we want to make sure that we're not using these as a standard for any one platform in particular. If you start using these, and there's a lot of videos explaining the details of why ROAS is not always the case, go watch those videos. They're really, really good, especially some of John's videos in the past. So let's take, for instance, let's do some tests here. We have Meta, Amazon, Google, and think of these as food sources for this chicken right here. So let's say we want to scale up Meta. It's getting really good ROAS, so let's throw ROAS on there. This is the formula for basically ROAS. We scaled it up, and we got some unknowns there. So we know that we are getting some new customers, but if we just take a look at ROAS, it could be a lot of remarketing. It could be a lot of repeat customers that's scooping up, and we're feeding that chicken that type of mix. Are we looking at the back end? Are we taking a look at new orders or new cost to acquire customer? Might drop if we're just looking at ROAS because it's so heavily in marketing, and then LTV might jump up slightly. But in the long run, if this is not being fed, then it's going to start going and messing with everything else. And then your revenue is going to start dying off, and the egg's going to get smaller and smaller. So we don't want to do that. But the good thing about that is we did an isolated test with that just now. We know that if we scaled up Meta, just using this as an example, then it didn't work out, and then we could test something else. So let's say, okay, we know that maybe Google Ads is pushing a lot of cold traffic because we have a lot of good terms in there. We're using some shopping campaign or whatnot to just push cold alone, but it doesn't look like it's getting a lot of ROAS. But we want to go ahead and test and see if we scale it up or if we make a change, what will it affect the chicken versus just looking at these droppings here and saying that's it, that's that's CPA, that ROAS decreased by a lot. We don't want to do that. We want to feed the chicken, let it go through its process, and say, okay, is NCAC up? Did new orders come in? Is the MER stabilized? And then you can start looking at LTV sometimes. How did that change when we did this? So more of an isolated test with that. But if we start going and saying, okay, we're going to increase Google Ads at the same time, we're gonna throw in Amazon ads, we're gonna drop that, and then we're gonna increase Meta ads as well. Now you have all of this type of food source going into the chicken, and you know all these numbers start changing. If revenue goes up, okay, well, what actually affected the chicken? Was it the Amazon blend? Was it Google blend? Was it both of them? Or if it dropped, what made it worse? Was it Meta? Was it Google? So you really want to focus on isolated tests and not just kind of like throw in a bunch of things because we can make changes and say, hey, you know, maybe we're pressed on a certain type of outcome. We need this right away. It's more of the long game of saying, hey, we need to really make sure that these back-end numbers or that chicken is being fed properly, and saying, okay, that revenue is coming out solid gold versus kind of like this murky stuff right here where it says, okay, clicks, CPA, CPC went down or up, versus what's actually going on in the back end. So that's my little spiel on the chicken strategy, but I'll probably start diving into these a little bit more in depth. I know this is kind of like a general video of kind of how things are set up and the process of making sure that we do isolated tests to make sure that these numbers are nice and healthy to get that revenue going. So I'll shoot an example next video on example of when a client was getting double of what they did, but Google Ads said that they were getting worse. And I'll shoot an example of that and why we don't go after not chicken, sorry. Why we don't go after an app, but we go after the chicken itself, and then making sure that golden egg is up there. So, other than that, yeah, that's what I got.